video is about electrical issues with the C6 Corvette and the car going into limp mode. What I mean by limp mode is I've found this happened several times to me where you're going down the road and the car basically loses a ton of power. It starts to run and sound differently. Your traction control light comes on, your check engine light comes on, the power steering gets harder to move. What else? It kind of bogs down sometimes, especially if you have any modifications to the car, and it can throw a ton of different codes. I've had that happen 5 or 6 different times. I've seen numerous people online have this thing happen multiple times, and every single time it's caused by an electrical issue. Now, in my first instance, my battery connection terminal was loose, so I fixed that. The second time it happened, the other battery terminal connection was loose. I snugged everything up and fixed that. The third time it happened, I went through and cleaned off all the grounds and it fixed it for a few months. The third time it happened, I realized that inside the fuse box, the connections in there, the relays and the fuses, for whatever reason I don't know if it's all Chevrolets during the 2000s or just Corvettes, or depending on when they were made and how much wear they have on them, but the connections get somewhat loose or not very tight, and electricity loves to not do anything. So if it can not make a connection, it wants to do that. Everything needs to be very tight and very snug for you to never have any issues. So my recommendation is, and I'll show you a little more in depth about the fuse box and how to do that here in a second, but if your car goes into limp mode, or if you have any electrical issues, yes, it could be your battery. If your battery is 5 years old or multiple years old, go ahead and get it tested as one of the first things to see if that's your issue. Also, make sure your charging system is good. If you're having a ton of issues with your alternator and then you have this problem, well, maybe you should fix your alternator first. But regardless, if you are confident that your battery and your alternator are healthy, then I would try these things. So first thing I would do, and I would also recommend doing this when you get a C6 Corvette, no matter what condition the car is, but the first thing I would recommend doing is check your battery connections. Make sure they're tight, make sure they're snug, make sure there's no loose anything on there. Second, I would go through all of your grounding and electrical main points. So like this bolt underneath here, make sure that's snug and clean. Make sure those grounding connections are clean. Make sure the one under there's like one that's hard to see, all of your connections down there to your starter and your main grounding wire to your block, make sure those are tight and clean. Also, another thing on this car is all of the grounding connections to the frame are painted over to where you pretty much only have the bolt that screws in as a means for the electricity to flow. One thing I did is I went through every ground point, which most of them, there's one here, there's one there, there's a couple underneath here, there's one on the fuel pump where you basically take out the wheel well and get to it from there. But go through all of those, sand off the paint, and then reconnect it and make sure it's snug. I would just do that. Even if it's not the cause of your problem, grounding connections should not be painted over. They should be clean, metal to metal, and then you paint over once the connection is bolted down. So after you make sure your alternator is healthy, make sure your battery is healthy and can hold a charge, make sure your connections on your battery are nice and snug and tight. It really will take like an hour and a half to go through all of these little grounds underneath the hood to make sure all of those are clean, sand off the paint, reconnect them, and then you have peace of mind. The next thing after that, which I would recommend, is I have found that if you go through your fuse box and just pull any one of these fuses out by hand, they should be tight. Like, I'm grabbing this fuse, I'm pulling. I can't even hardly pull it out. I kind of have to use 2 hands pinching together and really put some force to pull it out. So what I found previously is that a lot of these fuses and these relays were so loose, I could just, with light pressure, just pop them out. That's not good. They should be a lot tighter than that. And I found a video of a Malibu where guy has the same electrical issues that come out of nowhere. Turns out he takes apart the fuse box. In his case, he had a broken wire, and I'll show you where the broken wire is. It's like, I'll post a picture. It's like one of these wires is broken. So next thing I would recommend doing, and I'll show a video of how to do this, and when I did this, is remove the fuse box, pinch all of those little terminals that the fuses stick into and the relay stick into, slightly more bent. Don't crush them together, don't break them. You'll just get needle nose and slightly bend them back together to where that connection is snug. I did that on my entire fuse box. It took like an hour or two, and I haven't had an electrical issue since. It has not gone into limp mode since. And like I went through all of my grounds, all of my connections, everything was good. Still had the issue come up again. Went through my fuse box. It's been like 6 months, no issues.
Corvette Z06 P1682 code and other electrical issues. Looking online about trail blazers, and a lot of times, often, which seems, I've got a Toyota and that thing never has any of this bull crap, but Chevrolet, especially in the early 2000s, pulled the fuse box, so it's just these 4 bolts. I unscrewed them, I thought all the way, and then I pulled this cover off. Gotta break these terminals off to get that bolt. I was pulling it up and it still wouldn't come out. Make sure they're all the way unscrewed, and then you gotta wiggle them back and forth, and then these pop out. And 99% sure that there's little things underneath this, inside of here, that are going wrong. Also, your relays should never be that loose. Like, you can just pull it out easily. It should be very secure in there, you know? That's just too loose. So a lot of these teeth under here need to be pinched back together, I think. Pulled the fuse box, I made this little wooden thing with a 2x4, and then whenever I was popping these out, I would screw on a nut. And then this guy, just to dampen the force, and I got them all out. I've seen people online, you have to kind of shave that down a little bit to get these back inside smoothly. But I haven't noticed anything crazy. I just flipped this side over. So this is the side that connects to all the fuses. This is the side that connects to the undercarriage. So whenever you stick in a fuse or a relay, so a lot of these I have found are getting loose. So I'm going to pinch them together just a little bit more. Make sure all of these copper wires, that they have continuity. And this seems like if something jiggles loose, seems like it's easy to fail. But hopefully this will fix the issue.
Anyway, hope that video helps. If your C6 Corvette is having electrical issues, and specifically going into limp mode, check those things. Just run through and do them all. And I am very, very confident that if you clean up all your grounds, make sure your battery is healthy, make sure all of your connections are good, go through your fuse box, pinch those connections, make sure there's no broken wires, put everything back together, restart it, it'll go away. Let me know if y'all have any questions. I've spent a lot of time researching and dealing with these electrical issues, and this is from my experience. If you have a different experience, by all means comment. Just excited to hopefully help people out with this video. Thanks for watching.